This message from Reverend Philip Eapen is brought to you by The Lighthouse.
Welcome. In this part of the series on how to study the Bible, we learn about the strengths and weaknesses of the deductive method of Bible study. Before we get into examining the nature of deductive method of Bible study, we need to take a quick look at the basics of reasoning. Here's a set of statements I want you to consider. All men are mortal. Caesar is a man. Therefore, Caesar is mortal. In this argument, the final statement is a conclusion. Caesar is a mortal. The conclusion is drawn from the preceding statements. Those statements are called premises. So we have two premises and a conclusion. The logical arrangement of the premises and conclusions is called an argument. In every argument, we'll be able to identify at least one conclusion and several premises. Whether we like it or not, we have to deal with arguments on a daily basis. As rational human beings, we evaluate various claims. How do we know whether an argument is sound? We can safely say that this argument is sound if the premises are true and the conclusion flows logically from the premises. For instance, consider this argument. The first premise: all men are wise. Premise 2: Caesar is a man. The conclusion: therefore Caesar is wise. The logic of this argument is valid. The conclusion flows from the premises. If all men are wise, and if Caesar is a man, then he must be wise. But we know that this argument is not sound because the first premise is not true. Certainly, all men are not wise. There's one common feature in these arguments that we considered till now. The arguments start from a generalization and moves to a particular case. The first statement in this argument is a general statement about all men. All men are mortal. This statement is assumed to be true. From there we arrive at a conclusion about a particular person called Caesar. This kind of a reasoning is called deductive reasoning. Deductive reasoning starts from the general and moves to the particular. It moves from generally accepted statements to conclusions about a particular case. As long as all men are mortal, and as much as Caesar is a man, he must be a mortal. You can't escape that conclusion. It's an objective conclusion. It's a necessary conclusion. The most important thing to watch for in deductive reasoning is the credibility of the premises. Are all men truly mortal? Very often in deductive reasoning, people take these commonly accepted statements for granted. The truthfulness of such claims is never verified. When deductive method is applied to learning follows the patterns of deductive reasoning. It makes use of available statements that are assumed to be true. These statements are arranged logically to produce a conclusion. When theologians follow the deductive method of Bible study, they gather verses from various passages in the Bible. These verses form the premises in their arguments. These verses are arranged in a logical way to produce a doctrine, such as the doctrine of the deity of Christ or the doctrine of the Holy Spirit. Such neatly classified doctrines form systematic theology. Theologians come up with the doctrine of man, the doctrine of sin, the doctrine of salvation, etc. The deductive method of Bible study results in topical sermons and systematic theology. Deductive Bible study is all around us, not just in textbooks of systematic theology. Doctrines from several volumes of systematic theology flow into our new believers classes, Sunday school lessons, membership classes, sermons, radio and television shows, and even the doctrinal statements of Christian organizations and denominations. When pastors and preachers follow the deductive method, they select a Bible passage or a topic. Instead of doing their own research into that topic or passage, their natural inclination is to reach out to a Bible commentary or a dictionary or a similar resource that is already available out there. The statements given in these resources are taken for granted. These statements are then processed logically to produce a sermon or an article. Even if preachers get to explore the Bible for themselves, they'll naturally follow what they were taught by systematic theologians. They'll just do a topical Bible study. They'll gather verses from the Bible, arrange those verses in a certain manner as premises, and formulate a teaching or doctrine as a conclusion. Examine your church's preaching calendar. Check your church's sermon archive on the internet. What kind of sermons do your preachers preach? I won't be surprised if most sermons that you hear these days are topical sermons. This is a clear indication that your preachers follow a deductive approach to Bible study. When it comes to a new believer who joins a church, he too is initiated into deductive learning. He is fed with pre-packaged lessons during new believers' classes, membership courses, and weekly Bible studies. His mind gets filled with information about the Christian faith. Hundreds of bits of information. He is eager to swallow this information without questioning anything. Just like in deductive reasoning, this new Christian tries to arrange the bits of information in his mind. He works hard to piece together his own personal understanding about what it means to be a Christian from all these bits of information. From the readily available statements, he moves towards a personal, particular understanding. Every statement from the leaders is taken for granted. Even if this new believer reaches a state when he thinks he should study the Bible on his own, he too will reach out to pre-packaged Bible lessons or to Bible commentaries before he can form his own opinion about a Bible passage or verse. Let me show you an example of deductive Bible study done by several churches. Most Christian organizations teach their members to tithe, that is, to give 1/10 of all your income to the church. There's even a doctrine of tithing. This is how the doctrine is formulated. The occurrence of the word tithe or tithing in the Bible is studied, and verses that affirm the practice are listed out. Genesis chapter 14 verse 18, Genesis chapter 28 verse 22, Leviticus chapter 27 verses 30 and 32, Malachi chapter 3 verses 8 through 10, Luke chapter 11 verse 42. From these verses, an argument is constructed. Let's take a look at the premises. Premise number 1. Abraham gave 1/10 of his spoil to Melchizedek. Premise number 2. Jacob committed himself to pay tithes to the Lord. Premise number 3. The Israelites were commanded to honor the Lord with their tithes. Premise number 4. God was angry with those who failed to pay their tithes. Premise number 5. God commanded Israelites to bring all their tithes into the temple storehouse so that there should be food in the house. Premise number 6. Even Jesus affirmed the practice of tithing. And therefore, we arrive at this conclusion. As a Christian, you should give all your tithe to your pastor or your church. Emphasis is laid on the last premise, based on Malachi chapter 3 verse 10. Bring the full tithe to the storehouse. This piece of deductive Bible study needs to be examined properly. As in any case of deductive reasoning, we need to examine the premises. The conclusion of the argument, that is, the doctrine of tithing, appears to be a strong conclusion. the credibility of the premises need to be checked. The accuracy of the premises depends on the accuracy of interpretations of those verses. How accurate were the inferences gathered from these verses? As a part of our examination of the doctrine, we have to question the premises. The key questions are: number 1, are these verses the only verses that talk about tithing? Has any verse or passage been left out? Number 2, were all the verses interpreted accurately within their respective contexts? For instance, did Jesus really affirm the practice of tithing? Question number 3, can just about anyone collect the tithes today? Where is the storehouse of the Temple of Jerusalem? Answers to these questions will reveal whether the premises are true. The doctrine of tithing will stand or fall based on the credibility of the information inferred from these few verses. First of all, let's ask this question: are these verses the only verses that talk about tithing? The answer definitely is a resounding no. There are so many other verses in the Bible that refer to tithing. How can a doctrine be formulated with the help of a few verses? That too, after leaving out a large number of verses that give us a better understanding about the Jewish practice of tithing. Well, it's not difficult to find out why many verses on tithing were left out. Take a look at Deuteronomy chapter 26 verse 12. It says that tithes were to be paid once in 3 years. Not monthly, not annually. It also says that tithes were primarily a social security mechanism. It was to be given to the poor, the landless Levites, the widows, the fatherless, or travelers from other countries. Now, how about Deuteronomy chapter 14 verses 22 through 27? Now, this passage says that Israelites should carry their agricultural tithes from their farms to Jerusalem. They were commanded to eat their tithes in the Lord's presence. Those from far away could sell their tithes and bring the money to Jerusalem. And here's the interesting bit. God commanded them to buy any food that they wanted, be it beef, lamb, wine, or even strong drink, using the money that they brought, and to eat it before the Lord and rejoice with their household. It's not surprising that these passages got swept under the rug. If Christians come to know the true nature of Jewish tithing, Christians will then bring their tithes to their church compounds and start eating and drinking, celebrating in the presence of the Lord. Now that we have found that the premises weren't constructed properly, we know that the doctrine of tithing is on shaky ground. We are not through yet. Let's move on to the second question. Did Jesus really affirm the practice of tithing and make it standard practice for his followers? Jesus' statement in Luke chapter 11 verse 42 should be read in context. Jesus was not issuing a statement on tithing. He was rebuking Jewish leaders for their hypocrisy. The Pharisees neglected the weightier matters of the law and clung to smaller matters such as tithing. In that context, Jesus said that they should have observed the more important parts of the law along with the less important ones. Therefore, Jesus' statement should not be misconstrued to establish a Christian doctrine of tithing. Finally, my last question. Where's the storehouse of the Jewish temple now? The Jews were commanded to bring their tithes into the temple storehouse. Where is the temple today? The truth is, the Jewish temple was destroyed in the year AD 70. Along with the temple went every ordinance associated with it, the animal sacrifices, the Levitic priesthood, and even tithing. This example of deductive Bible study illustrates the pitfalls of this method. However, The deductive study of the Bible has an advantage. It can lead to the formulation of Christian doctrine and topical Bible studies. The doctrines produced by these studies will be sound if they satisfy two conditions. Number one, each supporting verse in the argument should be interpreted properly in context. Number two, the conclusions drawn from these verses should be logically consistent with the premises. But many Bible teachers who engage in deductive study ignore the context of the supporting verses, and they circumvent logic. And how about their students? Their students are raised on twisted doctrines. The students fail to notice the mistakes because they themselves were never encouraged or equipped to study the Bible on their own. There are Christian denominations that keep their congregations dependent on the powerful clergy by keeping the flock hooked on to pre-packaged teaching material. God says, "Let my people go, let my people know, and let my people grow." God willing, we'll examine the value of inductive Bible study in the next part of the series. Thanks for watching. God bless you.
Please click the thumbs up button if you like this teaching. Please consider subscribing to this channel. If you have a question, please feel free to ask in the comments section below. See you soon.